My name's Barry Jacobs, and I grew up basically in London, in the East End of London. My background is that my father's parents came from Russia, and they were Orthodox Christians. No, sorry, they were Orthodox Jews. My mum came from the East End of London, and she was a Christian. And obviously during the war, well, just before the Second World War, my father's parents had to escape the Russian regime that was going on over there, and they made the fatal error of moving to Germany. So they had the issue in Germany where obviously the Nazis had taken over, and they got the issue with the Jews and the Nazis. So they got out of there and moved to London. And at that time, obviously the Second World War was due to start, so they had the issues in London as well with the Black Shirts, which was a Nazi movement in London. So the Jewish religion side was sort of shunned in order for them to save their lives. And my father met my mum, and my dad became very disorientated with any religion at all, to the point where he taught me not to believe in any religion whatsoever. And I grew up questioning Christianity, because at the end of the day I went to a Christian school, a Church of England school, and that was the religion that was put on my birth certificate. But I questioned it. To me, it was innately wrong. There was something always wrong, but I could never work out what it was. I didn't know. In my mind, there was something wrong with the Bible. There was something wrong with the whole thing, which I then put in one big lump and said there's something wrong with all religion. To me, religion was a way of controlling people. It wasn't a choice. It was, you will do this and you will do that. And I used to say, no, I'm not going to do that. That's not what I want. So I grew up shunning religion. I grew up shunning anything to do with religious education. To me, it was just innately wrong. Basically, I wouldn't say I was an innocent person either. I sort of, until I sort of come across Islam, you sort of suddenly realise what sort of a life you had led. I used to drink, and there was women, parties, and all the things that you shouldn't do, but you don't know anything. But the point that I'm making about Christianity, and even Judaism to some sort of extent, is I nicknamed both of them a part-time religion, because you get all these so-called pious people that will go to church on a Sunday morning, and then for 6 days a week they've got no other religious thoughts in their head. They think nothing of going to the pub on Saturday night and getting completely drunk, and then turning up for church on a Sunday morning with a hangover. And it was that really I used to sort of question, how can that be right? How can that be pious? It's not the thing. But I led that life. I mean, I didn't go to church very often, but that was the life I led as well. And then I came across Islam purely by accident. But it was just one of those things that you suddenly something clicks. And to this day, I look back and I think, how on earth did I become religious? For 40 odd years, I had no religious bones in me. I started life, when I left school, I became a carpenter, and then went on to become a construction manager, and I was offered a position in Auckland to manage a project over there in New Zealand. And at the time I thought, this seems a good idea. It gets me away from the cold, bleak London weather. And I jumped on a plane, came over here in May, and it was cold and bleak over here. In fact, it was even worse than it was in London. And I sort of stepped off the plane and I thought, what have I done? But I stuck with it. And to date, it's probably the best thing I ever done. I went on from being a construction manager, getting completely disorientated with the building industry. Building industry is a very cutthroat industry, especially in New Zealand. There's people that just want to rip you off all the time. When I originally left school back in England, I actually wanted to be a doctor, but I wasn't intelligent enough, and I thought, well, I can't be a doctor, I'll be a nurse. And when I said to my dad, who was a very old-fashioned person, Dad, I'm going to be a nurse, his attitude to me was, well, is there something you're not telling me? and no son of mine is going to become a nurse, so you're coming with me on a building site. So when I thought to myself, well, I've got a choice what I want to do, I went to university in Auckland, or Unitec in Auckland, and started doing a nursing degree, which is where I met my wife Salima. Now Salima's a born Muslim from Singapore, and we were just talking, and we'd have study groups, and we would talk about different things and what I thought about religion. And there were certain aspects of what I used to say, and one of them, the most memorable one that I can think, is that in my mind I always used to say, if Jesus was this really important person, then he would have been protected. There's no way that he would have been put on the cross. And I discussed this with Salima, and Salima's words were, "You're a Muslim." "No, I'm not. It's just my belief." And she used to say to me, "Well, that's what we believe. If you believe that, then you're a Muslim, and maybe you should learn more." And from that, she taught me more and more and more about Islam. And the more she taught me, the more I thought, no, this is the right path. This is what should be. It took me